In the last recording, I deployed a AWS stack with CDK, and I had some problems using this CDK bash script because it was opening up a Docker within a Docker, and just something wasn't quite right. And I didn't want to figure it out, so I just installed CDK locally, which actually it's installed in this npm. So to run it, I'll use npx. So maybe I'll add that to the README. Run for all the following, run npx cdk your command. And we can remove this file, and we can remove this file. So I'm going to stop our server and do a cdk. Okay, so npx cdk diff. So what we had deployed, according to the app stack, is a bus, and then we've been pushing events to that bus, and then we created a rule which would put it from the bus into the queue. Now, receiving a bus is very useful for sending messages between AWS accounts, but I almost feel like we can go to the queue directly. We don't need to go to the bus. And the reason for that is because there's no way in the rule to specify the message group ID for a FIFO queue. And I kind of think it's useful to keep these in order. So I may just eliminate the event bus and go directly to the SQS. The other reason to go to the event bus is you can pick multiple targets, but if we're always processing with an SQS queue, we could, like this allows you to have more fan out, but at present it doesn't look like I need it. I would prefer to have the option to do the FIFO SQS queue. Let me think about it. Then we added a rule, a target, the Lambda writer, and here I'm just console logging out. And so after I deploy this, we went to the Lambda logs and we saw that we are indeed logging things. So we can go to go to monitor and view the logs in CloudWatch. And you'll see we're getting something. So we can inspect one of these. And if we open this up, we're getting this payload. So this comes directly from Event Bridge. It says Event Bridge's wrapper, I think. No, this is our wrapper, isn't it? ID, detail type. No, it's their wrapper. Detail type, source, all that kind of stuff is theirs. The detail is mine. So this part is mine. Okay, and so maybe we can send this directly. What does the diff say? So I think we're good. So done. Nothing changed. So I'm gonna turn down some of these resources. Let me go into. Okay, so this will be gone. This will be rolled back, and the rule will be rolled back. The SQS queue will be gone. All right, we just have the one SQS queue. Actually, we have two. This one I was just experimenting with in the AWS web console for fun. And then what do we have? We have the bus, we have bridge, and we have rules here. and I have a test here. I'm going to just remove this. I'm going to tear it down, and I don't want it to be giving me errors for reasons it can't tear it down. I'm going to tear this one down. So let's do it this way. No bus. Let's just tear everything down. So if you comment out everything, I think it will just tear everything down. No bus, no queue, no rule, no target, none of these things. But the stack is still here, so you can say npx cdk deploy. That should roll everything back. And while it's doing that, the thing we want is a FIFO queue. So we'll say event queue will be this dot FIFO, and FIFO will be true. What else? What other options are there? So it takes a queue props. So it takes a queue name. Do we have the queue name? Yes, we have the queue name. Duration to keep it. Default is 4 days. It's fine. Retention period. Time in seconds of the delivery of all messages in the queue is delayed. So no delay. Delivery. No, this delivery delay. Max message size in bytes. Default value is that, which is fine. 256 kilobytes. Max message size. Default wait time for receiving. Do not wait. Okay. Receive message wait time. Visibility timeout. Dead letter queue. Queue encryption. Data key to use. FIFO specify whether to enable content-based deduplication. Okay. Content-based deduplication default is false. Good. Deduplication scope is default from the queue, and FIFO limit is per queue as well. Removal policy, destroy. Okay, I think these defaults are fine. So we create. Okay, how's this doing? It's deleting. Now we have. Okay, so that'll give us our FIFO queue. Then we're going to create a trigger to the Lambda. So create a Lambda, which is just this event writer. So timeout 5 seconds, Node.js. Is this the latest node? What other node do we have? Node 14 is the latest. And handler, it's fine. And then we create a event source. And that's it. It'll be triggered immediately when it goes into the queue, and we can write it to DynamoDB. Now we just have to figure out how to write to the queue. And we can do that over an event writer. So we'll swap this out. So instead of the entries this way, we're going to want AWS SQS something, right? Dot what? Put insert send message. Send message or send message batch? Delivers up to 10 messages. What does send message do? Send message delivers a message. So we want to use send message batch. I think we want to do this for every 10. Can you make a batch out of a list? Elixir batch of list. Can someone figure out how to iterate lists but with a batch of X at a time? If the function I existed, step 5 puts blah blah blah. Enum chunk every will break a list down into sublists of X. So if you have this, enum chunk every 10. It will leave the remainder number of elements out. For example, if the array is, the result will now include 11, 12. Insert enum chunk. Chunk splits enumeral on every element for which function returns a new value. Chunk every shortcut to chunk every enumerable count. Returns list of lists containing count elements each, where each new chunk starts. Step elements into the enumerable. Chunk every enumerable, the count, and the 10, 10, and leftover. So this one gives, this is the enumerable, this is the step, and so this starts at 3. What does this mean? Oh, and this says discard. Count and start at 2, which means 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 4, 5. Let me read this. Returns list of lists containing count elements each, where each new chunk starts step elements into the enumerable. Step is optional, and if not passed, defaults to count. Chunks do not overlap. If the last chunk does not have count elements to fill the chunk, elements are taken from leftover to fill in the chunk. If leftovers does not have enough elements to fill the chunk, then a partial chunk is returned with less than count elements. If discard is given in leftover, the last chunk is disregarded. Okay, so I guess it's just entries. So that's the enumerable, and you do enum.chunk every. So we need the count, which is max 10. Step 10, leftover, nothing. So that will give you a list of lists. And now we want to send message batch. So we take the state AWS client and our input. So here's a list of lists. So with this one, we want to each, I think. enum each with a batch. Do something with the batch. And just to see if this sort of works, let's do IO inspect batch label batch. And hide this for a second. Here we are. We are moving around, doing this, and our batch has a payload in it. Okay, so gotcha. So here we want to send the batch. So we will take the batch and what goes in the batch. So send message batch takes the, and this is not useful. I'm gonna look at some other APIs. Anything up here? Let's look at SQS send message going just okay. Send message batch, take the send message batch input. So it takes entries and a queue URL. Okay, so the input equal a map with entries and a queue URL. It's a string, and that is, okay, so the queue URL is, let's find out what our queue URL is. And okay, we don't have a queue here, okay, because we deleted everything, but let's put something back. We have our app stack, here's our event queue, FIFO, and there's a trigger to call it. So I think we can deploy this. So this is fine. Let's go here. Okay, deploy. While it's doing that, let's take a look at what this is. This is send message batch request entry. Okay. Which one of these are required? Okay, the ones that say require true. Let's copy this. Okay. Event writer. We make a function called def create SQS entry given an event. Okay, so length of time, you can't set the delay per message, so get rid of this. An identifier for a message in this batch used to communicate the result. The ID of a batch request needs to be unique within a request. This identifier can have 80 characters. The following characters are accepted. Alphanumeric hyphen underscore. ID is a required field. Type of string. An identifier for a message. Okay, so we need some kind of ID. Let's see that ID identifies a unique message. Okay. Each message consists of a name, type, and value. I don't need these. These not required. Don't need it. The body of the message. This is required. So message body. Message body. JSON string. And this parameter only applies to FIFO queues. So this is called the message deduplication ID. Dedupe ID, which is a string. And this one tagged the one message group, which I think can be the same. Message group ID. So we'll just call it group ID. So we'll send those things on, and then let's just to send each message consists of this. I don't think we need any of these. Okay, so this is an object. So we're creating a map, and we'll make string keys out of these. So we'll use that here. We're not going to do that. We're going to use, what is this called? Create SQS entry. Create SQS entry using the ID, which will be the event space ID followed by the event version number or sequence. Is it just called the sequence? What do we call it? It was called the sequence. That's the ID. Let me undefined function. ID message body. Okay, the message body will be this guy. JSON encode event. Finally, the group ID will be the event space ID. Alright. Alright, so then the result of entries would be correct. So we'll pipe that into enum chunk every. So we get a list of lists in case there's more than 10. Then for every one of the batch, we need to do something. And we'll create an input where the entries are the batch. And the URL is the URL, which we need to find out what that is. Finally, we'll do abus send message batch, do batch, and I'll inspect. And the label will be send message. Input. So this will iterate through every batch, sending every batch. And how are we doing here? So create in progress, event queue. Let's go look at that, see if our queue is ready. SQS. The queue is ready. It's FIFO. And we have our URL here. We'll copy this and we'll paste this into so we'll want to change this into a variable that's dependent on our we'll want to put this as an environment variable, I think. So let's just test it for now. So we have this here. So it should put some messages into it. Are we done deploying? Not yet. All done. Okay, now let's restart the server and create some events. moving around. Whoops, did something just crash? Let's insert the table identifier does not refer to cannot convert the given list to a string. A list must be either empty or contain the following strings, integers. Oh, okay. Hold on. Event writer, we were passing entries. Entries must be an object. Okay, before we do that, before we do this, where is this line? ID, message body. Okay, deduplication ID, message group ID. So that looks fine. List to string and encode query. So what is a batch enum map hold? Encode query. Let me see what this is. IL inspect input label input. And input entries. List flatten true, required true. Now let me grab one of these things. Copy and paste. And input equal paste. So we have an input, and client equals AWS client create, and AWS SQS send message batch client and the input. Okay. Please check the given list or call inspect to get the list representation. Got this. it says it must be a list of strings, integers, representing Unicode code points, so maybe the entries so what if this is entries is empty list and the Q URL is SQS SQS west 2 dot left 400. It says unexpected response, error response, queue, error, sender type, empty batch request. There should be at least one send message, send batch request entry in the request. Okay. And if this is an object, it's no good. Yeah. Must contain strings or integers. Okay, so what if we convert this into a string? So just do JSON encode. JSON encode that thing. Alright, unexpected list element termination. What is JSON encode of that? That's that. Okay. Malformed input message unexpected list element termination. Now an entry has an ID, so can it have an ID? Well, let's do this. Can it have an ID? Okay. No. Alright. Message body. Message body. No. Something to do with a list. This doesn't feel like it's a list. About the send message SQS on JSON SDK. How does that go? Put send message batch params entries what happens if this is put into, so batch returns this object. And what if this was a JSON encoded? Let me read through the AWS bit. Some actions take lists of parameters. These lists are specified using the param n notation. Values of n are integers. A message can include only XML, JSON, and unformatted text. The following Unicode characters are allowed. If you don't specify the delay seconds parameter for an entry, user default. Some actions take lists of parameters. Alright, let's see if we can find Elixir help. The Elixir AWS send message batch. Oh, so this is a keyword list? It could be a keyword list. ID, like that. No. Cannot convert the given list to a string. To be converted to a string, a list must be empty or only contain the following elements. What if you gave it a string? Unexpected list element termination. So it must be a list. There should be at least one thing in there. And what is this thing? This element animation. Okay, I need to figure this out.